Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and if you're just now joining us, hello and welcome. And if you are returning, hello again. And I also would like to let you guys know that this is going to be part 2 to an amazing conversation that Miss Elle and I had a little while back. So we are going to be adding to what we referenced in part 1. So today is going to be more of like your tools, your to-dos, those things that we are looking for in our lives that can really give us a little bit of an edge. Elle has a wonderful freebie that we're going to talk about at the end. So if you're listening to this episode and you're like, I feel like I missed a part, you did. So go back to part 1, where we fill you in. We do a lot of talking about all these. Oh my gosh, Elle, I feel like we talked about so many things from recognition and reclamation of our worth, right? And talking about this invitation to live your life as the miracle that you are, which I loved how you said that. I thought that was beautiful. We also talked about alignment with one's true north, which again, if you're not familiar with that, go back to part 1. Elle does a really beautiful job of explaining and kind of talking about that as well. I love that. And we really kind of touched on like beliefs, thoughts, actions. Today, we're going to dive in a little bit more onto the micro pieces and the macro of those on top of different ways for you to be able to support your life, both in 3D and in 5D. So don't worry, stay tuned. We're going to explain all of those things. And so, yeah, Elle, thank you so much for coming back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me back. We had the best conversation. And so I'm super excited today to really talk about how to ground all of these kind of, ethereal, theoretical ideas and get it into real life. But thank you so much for having me back. I have ritual and ceremony on the mind as usual. I have love in my heart as usual. Let's do it.
I'm so excited. Well, let's go ahead then. And as we begin, go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do in case anybody wants to listen to tools and techniques before they jump into part 1.
I'm Elle Sojourner. I'm a certified life cycle celebrant. I'm a diviner. I'm an author. I'm a mama. I'm a lover of life. I am a disgusting spoil your pet owner. Ritual and ceremony is what I do. And I do it from the perspective of rite of passage, but I also do it from the perspective of ritual is available to all of us. And it is simply a tool for the alchemy that we all need to live our best life. So that's what I love to talk about. And that's what I'm going to give you today.
I love it. Oh, and as we're diving in, I just had something come to my brain. For anyone that maybe doesn't understand what alchemy is, would you mind explaining that?
So, alchemy, the synonym for it might be magic. It is simply transmuting, using an energy and turning it into something else. So, if you're not in the woo woo world, if you're not a celebrant, if you're not a diviner, which is another term for somebody who uses spiritual gifts to also work with energy, in my case, tarot cards, oracle cards, crystals, whatever. Alchemy is simply how we take one energy and turn it into another. Alchemy can be when you pray. Alchemy is when you manifest whatever your tool is. It's when you meditate. Alchemy can be the way you walk into a room and you walk in with confidence or you walk in with your head down. The way your behavior has impacted the experience in the room of yourself and other people, that's a really simple form of alchemy.
Oh, thank you for that. I just felt like we needed to
Yeah.
to gift that to the world. So I know that some people get really caught up in what everyone considers woo-woo. However, I challenge you to listen. Just be open. Not saying you got
Mhm.
to follow along, but just listen because there is a lot more in this realm that is scientific, but has
Yes.
been shoved to the woo-woo side. But there are things that actually back it up. I've really learned a lot about that because I had a really hard time being a very logical person my entire life of being like, I'm sorry, you're telling me I can just say this is who I am and this is going to just happen? Now, obviously, there's a lot more to that. I know there's some
Yes.
people that are like, you just state your affirmations. There's a lot more inner work to
Mhm.
things like that. And I think that's where people get confused on, like, oh, this is bull crap and this is what makes sense. So just have an open mind. I promise you, this is not like so far on the crazy side that you're like, I can't even get down with this. And we'll make sure we let you know about some of the science pieces that are behind it as well, because those are the
Yes.
things I learned to kind of merge, which then allowed me to be a lot more open in realizing that even things that are science based at one point weren't. Right? Somebody had a thesis, somebody had this understanding, somebody had a theory, somebody had a hypothesis, and then things were brought down the line, and then we had studies of it, right? So there's a lot more in this realm of the world that we live in that, yeah, it may not be, we may not be talking about the things behind it. There might not be a lot of studies done, but a lot of that is also because we can't make money off of it. If you can't make money off of it, and
Mhm.
unfortunately in the Western world, right? It's not something that's really celebrated. It's not something that's really talked about. Now, we do have a lot of people that are starting to go back onto like the naturopathic way and the holistic approach and stuff like that. So, anyway, I just felt like I needed to put that out there right in the beginning.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add too, if you're wanting to research a lot of these concepts, it's going to be in metaphysical science as well as neurological sciences. That's
Mm,
where if these things exist, that's where you usually, and I actually am a fan of that. I've been a lover of science all my life, and I personally don't see science as separate from spirituality, but that might just be how my brain works, but it works for me.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And there are so many pieces that are really connected to the neurological side of the
Hmm.
brain and how we rewire and how we do things. And it it amazes me that we are not talking about these things at a younger age, right? Like there are things I wish I would have known to tell my children or been
Me
aware of
too.
that I was saying to my kids when they were growing up. Because like now I hear them and I'm like, no, 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 no. That was an old belief of mom's. I'm so sorry. Like it really is interesting that the way that words play in our everyday lives is astonishing to me. And really, if you look at it from that space as well, I was watching something not too long ago, and it was a study on food and
Mhm.
how different industries like Cheetos, Cheez-Its, like all cereals that use scientists and language experts to get you addicted to buy their product.
Mhm.
Right. And I thought, oh my gosh, if we're purchasing and putting things in our body based on the words and the way that they are used, how does that affect the way that we use them in everyday realm? So just throwing that out. If anybody wants to go down the rabbit hole like I did one day, I was like, I'm good.
Ooh. It'll take you more than a day because it's unbelievable.
It is insane. It really is. And I think for me, it was one of those light bulb moments that it was like, well, if there are people paying to use people to do this, obviously there is something to it that isn't being taught to us. So what is that and how can we understand it? So I don't know. Anyway, off my
I'm so with you.
off my plug
I'm so with
off my platform
you.
for a minute. Let me come back down. Oh, I also know that we wanted to clarify
Yes.
about the conversation we were having last time. There was a phrase that we were talking about. And you were talking about falling asleep holding something heavy, kind of being in this I was going to say
Like a
trance.
liminal space or like a
Thank you.
dreamlike space. Some people
Oh,
call it a hypnagogic space, but I don't
there
think
we
people are
go.
walking down the street using that word.
Girl, I
Thanks
got
for
hold
letting
on.
me
I got to
geek
print
out
it.
a little bit.
Hypnagogic.
Uh-huh.
Hypnagogic. Yeah,
I mean,
no,
and really
that's
just
not.
referring to like that trance-like space you go to where you're trying to get information.
hmm Yeah. So I
People
know that
go
we were
there in
kind of talking about
meditation.
this.
Yeah.
I would love for you to kind of dive back because you did find out, right? It wasn't Nikola
Yes.
Tesla like we thought. So kind of fill everybody in on that because I just thought that was so cool. Like now I'm like, I want to try it. So so let's start there and then we'll kind of go back into sorry. And then we'll
I've
go back
tried it.
into
That's why I was
different ways.
laughing.
Oh,
Okay.
we're on right behind you.
Okay, let me tell everyone. Let me fill y'all in. So it was Thomas Edison. I went back and read that was who I read about. And so what he would
Crazy.
do was he would sit in a chair or like lay on a couch. He would have something heavy in his hand, knowing that when he went to sleep, as he was falling asleep, his hand would relax, this heavy object would drop to the floor, and that would startle him awake. But before he goes into this, exercise, if you will, he actually is intentional about knowing that in this kind of liminal space he's going to go into, he wants to get a creative idea, a solution. For me, I would be wanting to like hear from the angels or hear from the ancestors. And so this is what he would do to me, it's almost like the cheat code for what meditation is trying to do for you. Like instead of sitting there for 45 minutes, trying to slow your thoughts and, get into this other space, Thomas
hmm
Edison was like, I ain't got time for that. I'm just going to fall asleep with something heavy in my hand. And once it hits, as I'm coming back to alertness, that in between space, he would intentionally try to hang there.
It's just so cool.
It's pretty brilliant when you think about his time. People were telling him he was six
Absolutely.
ways of crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, between him, Albert Einstein, and Nikola Tesla, like the way that their brains worked, I have been so fascinated by. Like, I have watched so many documentaries, especially on Nikola Tesla. I don't know. I keep
Hmm.
trying to say my sister's name, Nikki. That's what's going on. I was like, why do I keep? But it really it amazes me, and I think about it today and how like subdued we are to our phones and everything else. And what's really interesting is my husband loves art, loves it. And so we have been watching some things on like the Renaissance age and the
Mm.
Rococo age, like way back when, right? And what I find so fascinating is a lot of the individuals who were painters were also philosophers and did this
Yes.
and did that. Like we were multi-talented in those days. And like nowadays, you have to choose one path, one career, one way of doing everything. And I'm like, how did we get here? Because every time I look at these Michelangelo, all these beautiful paintings and things like that, and sculpt, like they didn't just paint, they were sculptures, they did ceramics. Like there were so many different forms of who they were. And it was just normal. It was just
Yeah,
normal. And nowadays, if you talk about that, people are like, absolutely not.
that's not real. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think too, when I think about these inspired people, I don't think it's a coincidence that many of them were great thinkers as well as creative. Even if
Mm,
we look at modern day academia, a lot of people think math is about numbers and symbols. If you look at the trivium, if you look at like the Latin methodologies for educating people, actually, math was a way of teaching logic and reasoning. It wasn't just about getting the
interesting.
right answer. It was about teaching people how to think, how to have logic, how to have reason, how to deduce. And we've
Ooh.
gotten away from what it was actually trying to do for the mind and turned it into more of a life skill. A lot of great thinkers are actually creative. That all actually goes together. But what I find even more fascinating, a lot of creative people, they may have a different term for it, but many of them are what I call channelers of their art. Most creatives have some process that they go through that gets them into the space where they do their best work.
hmm
Some people, they can sing and then they go paint something. Some people, they wear a certain pair of socks. They, have to use this particular instrument. Or like for me, I do a lot of my writing at what I call the butt crack of dawn. Literally like 3 a.m. when the world couldn't be more still. But the reason I do that is because I can not only write almost stream of conscience, like these words will flow onto the paper. It's miraculous to me. But also, I actually can hear sometimes like angels talking to me, like guiding my work. They'll be like, nope, that's not it. Go back. That's crazy, but that's what works for me. I think a lot of people work in spaces like that. They just may not necessarily know where it comes from. They just know that
Mm,
there's some energy, some ritual that allows them to produce something that is beyond them. And that is the reason why we're so moved by art. That's why when you hear your favorite song,
mm.
it shakes your bones. That didn't just come from their mind, it actually came from their soul. When you read a book, oh my gosh, and it's so good to you. Like you can't stand for the book to end. That author wasn't just writing from their logical reasoning mind. They were actually like channeling that from something else. And every, field and discipline has different names for it. But ooh, don't get me started. Juicy stuff.
I'd love that. You know what though? That's so funny that you say that because I am an avid music lover. Like that is my thing. FYI, in case anybody wants to know, my secret talent is singing. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do.
I,
And I have gotten to a point in my life where, based on the words and the whole feeling in the song, I can tell if that came from a space of from someone's heart or if they just wrote it and somebody else wrote it for them and they were just kind of singing it. And so I gravitate toward specific artists who I know are writing their own songs and stuff because there's more of that connection that is there. So I've really gotten away from a lot of mainstream people, although there's some of them that have made it, like Teddy
yeah.
Swims and Jelly Roll and Ed Sheeran. Those
Teddy
are,
Swims don't play because I was there back on the day on the
oh,
socials,
I
hyping a brother
love
up.
him. Girl, just FYI,
Boys.
I got to meet him because he moved down here to Tennessee.
I'm
What to, what to talk what to talk about that one time. I literally saw him in a crowd and made eye contact with his mom, and she was like, "Come here," and I was like, "Gone." Yeah, not even
asking
kidding.
twice. He
Anyway,
has
but
a
yeah.
very special voice. And when he
Yeah.
sings, you know he's singing from his soul.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not
Yeah.
learned technique, that he was born with that. I
Hmm.
love
Yeah.
singer-songwriters for the same reason. Like back in the 80s and 90s, before it was cool, I always gravitated to the singer-songwriters because they are singing like it's like talking for them.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You can tell when somebody is performing another person's song that was written by somebody
Hmm.
else. It doesn't land the same way. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah. Just saying. I
Right?
do.
Unpopular opinion, but okay.
But there are ones, like there's the ones that get stuck in your head because they're so repetitive, like you can't help it being stuck there. But the ones that I enjoy singing, I feel it when I'm singing it, right? Sam Smith is one of my all-time favorites. For some, I get goosebumps every time I sing some of his stuff, but he's one of my absolute favorites because of the way he connects in his music. So anyway, yeah, it really is interesting. I've never really thought about that. I realize I've kind of gravitated in that direction. But yeah, you can definitely tell when a creative is being in their space, like really in their space versus it feeling more forced or doing it a specific way for people and things like that. It's
I mean, there's
intrigues
performance
me.
art and then there's actual creativity. They're not the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. So speaking of that and getting in those creative spaces, we talked about on the first episode this space of life feeling fulfilling, right? Or
Mhm.
feeling like we have these moments where we can be present with ourselves. And one of the things, that you had talked about the last time was the courage and the boundaries that have to be set on a daily for these
Mhm.
acts of what you call self-devotion, which I
Yes.
really love because in a space where we are at now, where we are going all the time, and it feels like we're not going enough and we're constantly doing, there isn't a lot of space for slowing down and focusing on the things that truly bring you peace, joy, serenity. And I have become a lover of being in those spaces, especially on like really fulfilling days. There are times where, like I'll just go outside, take my shoes off, walk around the backyard with my feet in the grass because I love that, and I know that kind of
Mhm.
leans into grounding as well, which we were kind of talking about. So,
Yes.
kind of leaning into this, I know that you've got some techniques and stuff like that for self-care. Let's
Mhm.
kind of get started in some of those things. I know that, when we're talking about practical things that happen in our everyday
Yes.
life, right? Things that are out of our control, when shit hits the fan, stuff like that. That's what we consider our 3D realm. And
Mhm.
then we'll kind of get into, what we call the 5D, and we'll explain to you guys what that is as well. So let's kind of start there, right? Because
Okay.
I know I used to have these days all the time, or it felt like it was all the time, right? Where it was like I just couldn't catch a break. I barely had time to breathe, and I didn't have a lot of self-care techniques or ways to support myself. I didn't even know what the hell self-devotion was.
Preach. I come from the same space where I felt like I was kind of living that nightmare, like Groundhog's Day, but like for years, where it
Yeah,
was just if my eyes are open, there's a million things I need to do. And I know daggone well by the end of the night, I'm not going to get them all done, but I'm going to
yep.
run as hard and fast as I can. And I mean, years of that. And part of it is just my personal nature. I like to do. But here's the thing, you can't be doing and exerting energy all the time. This is what I learned. I learned it from my health. I learned it from like my own sense of peace, my own mental clarity. There comes a point, and it has to happen for me daily. I think most people, it should happen daily, even in small amounts. You
Yeah.
can't just pour energy out. You have to pour back in. And some people, I think, move through life expecting others to pour into them. That's a
Mm,
beautiful thing, but there's certain things you can only do for yourself, stillness being one of them. 5 minutes. It does not seem like you can move a mountain or change anything in 5 minutes. You have 288 opportunities in a day to take 5 minutes. And for me, even at this point in my life, with what I do, with, having an empty nest, I still sometimes struggle to find those 5 minutes. I will have to say to myself, you have 288 chances not to screw this one thing up. Can you go put your butt on the couch for 5 minutes? Like, I
yeah.
literally have to almost discipline myself into that level of self-devotion. But part of the reason I think it's a challenge is not only because sometimes we don't easily have time in our day, the other element of that is permission.
Mm,
A lot of us, myself included, we have some narrative that attaches our self-worth to hustle. And we have been indoctrinated with a belief that being still, taking care of oneself, even saying the term self devotion, I've heard people say that's so selfish. I'm
ooh.
not going to be pressed about how you feel about me taking care of me when you're doing nothing for me. Make it make sense. But to take that position is not always a comfortable spot. It's not one that we're often rewarded for. And especially as women, we are often praised for taking care of others' needs over our own.
Hmm.
But if you're always the strongest person in the room and the brightest bulb, what happens when you dim? What happens when you're a little bit weaker? So you have to take responsibility. 5 minutes is taking your shoes off and walking around. A big one for me right now, I also love to sing. I have a background in that. I played instruments for a good part of my life. I love music. But a thing I've really come into, and there's science behind this, is humming.
Mm.
There's polyvagal theory, and I could get into all of that. I could geek out. I'm not going to do that to you. Y'all can research it, but there is a science behind humming and how it can basically recalibrate us, bring us out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, It can get us back into regulation. 5 minutes of humming is a long time. That's a lot of humming. But a lot of times, what I've noticed is when I'm humming, my body will start to sway and it starts to move and it starts finding gentle ways of 5 minutes of that. I'm right as rain. Another five, you could just listen to music, doesn't have to be that deep. You can listen to solfeggio frequencies. But the other thing too, 5 minutes of, pardon my French, but nobody asked me for a damn thing. There's
Isn't that the
seven,
truth?
like that's a thing.
Yeah,
There
absolutely.
are 7 forms of rest, and a lot of people don't know this. Social rest is one of those forms of rest.
Mm.
To not be needed for 5 minutes, to have people just lay off and not be waiting outside the door, but to give me a sanctified 5 where I can just sit on the bathroom floor, where I could let warm water pour over my hands, just so I can come back just a little bit, where I could take some deep breaths, where I could just shake. I love to shake because I like to dance anyway. So like I'm not ashamed to have my bits going everywhere, but just like a whole lot of jiggling. I mean, they used to make machines to do that for you. I can
That's
do it
true.
for
Yeah.
free. Let me get to gyrating. Here's one that no, you're gonna laugh. It's a real thing. There's science here. Twerking.
Oh, I'm down with this one. I'm down.
Girl, pop it like it's real, real hot. Twerking is a thing. And I'll tell you this briefly, the
My
science behind
husband's going to be
this.
happy with this one. Just FYI, he's going to remind me of this one all the time as soon
You
as I
can
tell
thank
him.
me. So a lot of ancestral energy, and if your one is into epigenetics, that's another thing people can go Google. It's stored in the hips. So things that you might have been carrying down either at the cellular level or just learned patterns of burden, of shame, of scarcity, it's stored in the hips.
Hmm.
People who have experienced any form of SA, your hips will hold that. Even if it was just somebody touching you up top inappropriately, it will sit in the sacral womb area of everybody's body. Moving your hips breaks up the energy. I've seen people who will start to cry when their hips start to loosen. A lot of times people who are stiff through the hips, they are sometimes having difficulty expressing themselves, being seen authentically. Another one is people who have tremendous burden all the time and obligation. Their hips will become stiff. It is a way that they hold their bodies that is almost like allowing them to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. There's real science behind
Mm.
this. So start popping and twerking a little bit. And it's interesting. I know for me, sometimes I feel it actually everywhere. I also start to get chills. I've had those experiences where moving through the hips has brought me to tears. I also like to get into some of that before meditation. For me, sitting still is just not super easy, but
Hmm.
moving, twerking, dancing, gyrating, it brings me into almost like a receptive energy because it's like I've moved any kind of heavy energy off of me. You can take 5 minutes to drop it like it's hot.
I'm gonna always take 5 minutes to try. No, but the first thing that I was thinking, and I want the audience to know this as well, because I know you're talking about the science. For anyone that has been listening to the podcast for a while, I talk a lot about the abuse that I went through for 10 years.
Mhm.
When I left that abusive relationship, I noticed that I started having hip pain, and I had hip pain on and off for probably 12 years after that. I mean, I was at a chiropractor every single month. I've done decompression, like all the different things, but it wasn't until recently when I really started doing breath work and yoga and things like that, and also learning to communicate. But I've noticed that that pain, which used to be, and when I say intense, I mean my hip pain was so bad at times that if I sneezed the wrong way, my left leg would lose all feeling, and I would have to catch myself before falling.
Mhm.
And I had never done anything, right, that was crazy like that. So everybody always said, oh, it's because you had kids young, blah, 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 right? All of the scientific breakdowns from your doctors. But I,
Right.
I read about this a couple of years ago about how much our hips carry. Because, we talk a lot about stress being in the shoulders, right? The back of the head, the neck, and the shoulders. But I have noticed that anytime that I am tense, especially now that I've learned to deal with things, it's actually not in my shoulders. It is always in my hips. I will wake up stiff the next morning. And so I'll sit and do my hip openers and things like that to just kind of recalibrate. And then I'm fine. Like I'm totally fine. It's not like it comes and goes throughout the day. But I just thought that was interesting, that you were talking about that. And I did read about that a couple years ago about how much our hips hold. I did not know about the SA and some of the things like that. So that's really interesting.
And the thing is, the hips are in near the sacral area where the womb is. Even men have the sacral chakra. So they
Hmm.
may not have a uterus, if you will, but they still have that womb space. And that is where creativity is stored. It is the mother energy, it's the nurturing energy. So when we have things happening in our lives that are contrary to wellness, nurturing, care, it's going to sit in that space. And even with the upper stuff, the neck, the shoulders, I've had all of it. So I've had 5 procedures on my back, I've had surgeries, I've had all of it. I broke my leg in 2 places, then my
Oh
knee
my
went.
goodness.
And the thing was, it was all connected. And I spent a lot of years healing an ancestral mother wound, as well as a mother wound in this lifetime, adopted kid stuff. No science there, really. But the thing of it was, even now, once that wound is healed, I realized there were deeper layers of work to do. A lot of times, my lower back and hips would hurt in relationship to my mother experience. I'm a
Mm.
solo parent. And if the world was not right for my son, it would show up in my back and my hips. So I had to learn to lay
Ooh,
on that floor and just let things twist. If you listen to your body and just get on the ground, you will know how you need to move. Even doing, like you were talking about, the hip openers, the 90-90s, people can go Google that, but it's a way of sitting on the floor and really getting the hips really opened up. And it's, you don't have to
mm-hmm.
be limber, super approachable.
Yep.
Like, so these are real techniques. This isn't just like, oh, I need to feel better for a moment. If we think about it as ritual, as moving energy, and when you're in it, when the bills are due and the kids this and the school that and 60-hour work weeks or more, or getting a new job, or parents are aging, or something really significant happens, or little things, the car needs work, it's all the stuff. When you're in it, that's when you're going to least want to do anything about it, because you're going to feel like you don't have the time, and you likely will not give yourself the permission. And what I've learned over time is you can't afford not to. When you need it the most, you have no choice but to get that 5 minutes, because if you do not, the universe will come and collect one way or the other. Your body will make you pay. So you can pay
Absolutely.
a little bit now or a whole lot more later. And I had to
Mhm.
learn that a few times the hard way.
You know
With
what's
that,
funny too? And I remember my mom saying, and I know I had heard this from a few people that like, oh, well, I never stop going, but eventually my body will make me stop. And we always like laughed about it. And it was just like this,
that's my
funny
truth.
phrase that we use.
Mhm.
But it is so true. I can remember multiple times of fighting in court battles and stuff repetitively and dealing with my kids and
Yes.
all the things. And then all of a sudden, I would get like a major sinus infection. And I mean, like, knock down, drag out. I have to go lay on the couch because I can't move. Sinus infection. And then within like 3, 4 days, I would be fine. But I mean, it would take me out, and that would happen multiple times a year. And I always thought, oh, it must just be allergies, but I've never really had a ton of allergies, but it would take me out. And that was always a phrase that I remember hearing. And I never really thought anything of it. It was just kind of like one of those like known unknown things, like, oh, oh, you keep going, your body's going to take you out.
There's
And so when you
science
would get
behind it.
sick, right? And you would just be like, oh, it's because, I was doing so much, but it's like your body really is speaking to you.
Well, it's adrenaline, it's cortisol, it's how that's impacting the gut. And then when your gut goes awry, then that affects your brain. Then you're looking at chronic
Hmm.
inflammation. There is science that supports this, how just the feeling, what it does to us biochemically, it will alter you. I end up paralyzed from the neck down from an autoimmune reaction. Had another one and ended up with fungal infection in my lung for 5 years. I mean, I'm stubborn. So I go hard. I go hard when I succeed, but I go hard on stupidity too. When I say the universe sat me down more than once, it was like I couldn't walk, lost the use of my hands. Like, and a lot of people are like, oh, she's sickly. No, I'm just ridiculous because I had believed that I didn't have permission to thrive in balance. I always thought winning had to hurt. And what hurts is winning and then having that taken away because you're down for months or years. And I can
Hmm.
imagine people listening right now who are living with autoimmune disease, who are probably like really shaking their heads because a lot of autoimmune disease, Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, he talks a lot about this. A lot of people with autoimmune disease have a very chronic caretaker personality, and it's research based. So love on everybody, but you must love on yourself.
Yeah, I just recently found him and I find him amazing.
He's the
And
bridge
just
between the science and the woo-woo. He's the
yeah.
bridge between what our mothers and our grandmothers used to say and why we know that's actually true now. It's not just
Hmm.
anecdotal anymore. And he's a
Yeah,
doctor and he
which makes it
lived
even
it.
better. Yeah, that's the bigger thing, and
Yeah.
I actually, funny enough, I turned my husband onto him because my husband has ADHD. And I was like, you really need to understand that there's more to the reason why you might have it than what you think, right? Because
Yes.
he's talked about, when he was a kid, nobody knew what the heck ADHD was, right? So
Mhm.
nobody ever dealt with it. And, it was interesting to find out the connections to trauma and things like that, which I know he talks a lot about, his
Yes.
experience and stuff. So you guys will have to find his information because it is very eye-opening, especially when you're tying in that science and bridging those two. And speaking
Yeah.
of bridging those two, that also kind of leads into what everybody considers woo-woo, which is going to be spiritual, right? Whether you're connected to God or spirits or however you see
Or your
yourself
highest self.
connected or your highest self. And that's kind of that 5D space, that
Yes.
that we were talking about in the beginning. I told you guys we really kind of focus on a little bit toward the end. And it's
Mhm.
being very aware, because I do believe, and I know Elle, you do as well, that we have to be aware of both how we are in practical and giving space, but also how we are connected spiritually and being aware of what that does for our lives and whatever capacity it is that works best for us. So I'd love for you to kind of dive into this space just a little bit to kind of give people, like, okay, I've got the practical down. I'm going to start trying to move my body and do
Yes.
different things. How does that connect with the spiritual side?
So, first of all, with the spiritual part, and I always joke about the woo woo, but for people who are listening who are really in that world, I have to acknowledge there are many more dimensions beyond even the 5D, like infinite number of dimensions. Because I know there's somebody right now who is like 5D, that's child's play. So, like in my own personal practice, I like try to get into 12D, a whole other talk show. I'm just keeping it correct. But aside from that, spirituality doesn't have to be about the external. Spirituality to me can be you communing with your highest self, the best version of yourself. If you want that to be your inner child, if you just want it to be the purest form of yourself, it doesn't have to get, so esoteric. So for those who are kind of, not sure that they fall into that, just think about the best version of yourself. Let's let that be your spirituality. Even if we're working in that space, what we know about mental health is that it starts with thoughts. And those thoughts typically come from feelings or beliefs. There's no way to get around the fact that there's something intangible happening that is impacting each and every one of our lives. If you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. I think I'm paraphrasing, I believe it was Ford who said something along.
Ford. Yep.
Yep.
It was Ford.
It's it's you can't touch a thought, you can't touch a belief. That's spiritual. There's something in your being that makes you believe certain things are true. So, if our feelings are affecting our thoughts, it would behoove us to try to feel pretty good more times than not. It would behoove us to have thoughts that make us feel confident about life and hopeful and capable more than thoughts that are primarily focused on what isn't working. Now, that
Hmm.
being said, I am the first one to throw a flag at somebody for toxic positivity. And I
Mm.
know sometimes that some people struggle with that even in religious spaces. this
Yeah.
thing where we have a sense of what we're supposed to think and believe and feel, but it's running counterintuitive to the reality of things. And so I tend to be one who leans into just radical honesty. You got to name it, you got to call it. And that's self-devotion. There have been times in my life when I have been ready to slap myself with how long it would take me to simply say, this is some bona fide bullcrap, and I'm calling it. I know people are listening who are like, yeah, there's a situation in their life. It's a job, it's a relationship, it's
Yeah.
they need to buy a new car, whatever it is. And we will sometimes just put up with things because we just won't accept the fact that this is not okay. Because once you say it's not okay, then you have to do something about it. The
Yep.
ritual in that, just say the thing. And then here's the alchemy of it. Once you identify what it is, what do you want to do with that? Energy is never destroyed. Energy is not even created. It's always just transmuted, just moves around, kind of like rain. There's water, there's ice, there's mist, but it's all always going to be H2O in different forms. Energy works that way. That's the alchemy of it. So if something is bona fide bullcrap, now we've called the thing a thing. What is the alchemy? How are we going to change that? And it could be that you have to accept it for the moment with a plan for a future change. But it could also be, I'm going to go do something about it right now. Well, what do you need to do for yourself so that you can be the version of yourself that can go do something about it? Y'all, don't judge me because I'm going to give this one away for free. The Superman pose. Don't play with me. There are days when I'm just not sure I'm that girl, but I've got a project in front of me. I use this a lot with work. And I'm like, how am I going to get myself psyched up? Because I don't really feel like the girl right now. That Superman pose hits hard. That's ritual. That's alchemy. Literally holding myself in that forward leaning position. And I might have to wear something fabulous like a kimono,
Oh,
to
there we go. Yeah.
oh, yeah, like to really, to make it, I'm for it. Sometimes I do have to put something on that makes me kind of remember who I am.
Yeah.
So
Oh, you muted.
there we go. There we
There
go.
you go. You're
So
good.
hit that pose. That's a ritual. And it's
Hmm.
spiritual because it's not really anything you can touch. But when you do that, it's like the energy comes forward. There's a remembering. That's woo woo, but it really does work. It's not going to hurt you. If you did it and it didn't work, what did it cost you? It can
Yeah.
be that simple. But also, even in terms of like meditation, one thing that I have learned, so I am a neurospicy girl too, late diagnosed because I raised a neurospicy child, and that's how many women come to be late diagnosed. And so one of the things I always thought was funny about meditation is I was like, how the heck are people slowing their minds down?
Hmm.
Like, I listen to YouTube at double speed. I kid you not. My YouTube playback speed is between 2.0 and 3.0. Like, my mind is on fire all the time. And I happen to love it, to be super honest. But there are times when, in a spiritual space, to come to calm, to come to still, to like, even my own mind would betray me, even if my body was still. One of the things I learned was moving meditation. I hit the zone when I'm walking. I
Mm,
just, for some reason in that space, I can disappear. I can look up and be 5 blocks over and don't even know how I got there. But why not? It's spiritual. It is. And it's also very good in a practical 3D sense. But if you're just
hmm.
talking about getting your mind into a space where it is open to solution, where it can have contentment and peace, in those spaces, you're going to find a way to move forward. A lot of times they say depression is the person not being, I guess, really, I don't want to say complete with the past, but depression is about how we're responding to what has already happened. And
Mm,
anxiety is about the concern about what is yet to come that hasn't even happened.
yeah.
So, from a spiritual perspective, you have to have a place to create contentment within yourself. Without that, you will be making decisions out of fear. That's not sound decision making. It just isn't. You will be making decisions based on the obligations placed around you by other people's expectations. That's not sound decision making for your best interest. And so, as out there as some of the spiritual stuff seems, having the skill set to be like, okay, I'm feeling a lot of energy. Another one for me is anger. I'm one of those people, you will not know that you are 2 seconds from getting put 6 feet under with me because I don't emote that very often, but I will internalize it. And my mind will just be
Mm,
in my body. I've had my own eyes turn red because I'm stinking mad, but I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat. Total self-betrayal, because that's usually when somebody should have got told about themselves, but it's just not my wiring to behave in that manner. If I hold that in, I'll have a cold within a week
interesting.
because it's hard on my immune system. I have to put that somewhere. So for me, that's just spiritual unrest. How am I going to find contentment? Sometimes it's just reading a book. Sometimes it's literally just getting myself on the ground. I love to just get on the ground. I just need to be there. And that feels safe to me. And I'll probably
Hmm.
think some things and say some things out loud and then come back to it. That's just, it's small ritual. It's
Yeah.
just 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I really agree. And that's actually something I started with in the very beginning of just learning to be present with myself. What was
Mhm.
starting that way. And I actually had there was a psychologist that I follow on Instagram. It is the holistic psychologist. She is phenomenal. I really love her stuff.
I know you're talking
And
about. I follow her.
and this is probably like 4 years ago. She was on this kick at the time about us needing to be present to be able to release things, let go of things, know
Yes.
what it is, why we are acting out or being angry or so upset. And so, what the challenge was, um, for her, and I kind of took it upon myself, was to set alarms throughout your day.
Yes.
Random alarms, it's got to be different every day so you don't get repetitive.
Hmm.
And when that alarm goes off, you are to stop everything that you are doing and you take 2 to 5 minutes, but you are to focus on every single scent that you have. So, all of your five senses, right? So, what do I taste? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I see? What can I touch? And it was just to kind of bring you back into this moment of where you were at,
Yes.
what was going on, and for you to be able to make decisions making moving forward. And I found that really, really interesting because I was like, I'm present. I know everything that I'm doing. I know what my kids are doing. I
We're
know what's going
not
on
a
in
lot
here.
of times. We're
We are
not.
not. We are such on autopilot. And one of the things that she uses, she said, have you ever been washing dishes and like talking to your kids or trying to get things done, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm done? And you realize you were done with the
Yes.
dishes, right? And or like if you're driving a car, you get in the car and you're driving one way, and all of a sudden you go automatically this direction. You're like, where the hell am I going? I meant to go this way. Like our brains are on autopilot,
Or you
right? And
get there and
so,
you're like, how did I get here? Did I stop at the
right?
stop sign? I've had that
Like
happen.
I've done that before. I'm like, oh no,
I
I
was like,
hope I
I
didn't
might have
hit
been
any red
blowing some
lights.
things. Ooh, thank
Right?
you, Lord.
But it's things like that. You're right, that is, it makes so much sense to just come back down to, like we said at the very beginning, grounding yourself, of knowing where you are at, of knowing what is going on in your life. And it really does make a huge difference on how you make decisions and how you think about the things that are around you.
Just hearing
It is,
yourself. I don't think a lot
yeah.
of us listen to ourselves. There's a lot of should and have to and the boss and the like we're very externally, we're taking direction through many moments of our life externally, which is not a bad thing. A lot of roles require that, but just hearing kind of your inner knowing. I am shocked sometimes I will go to bed at night and be like, I don't think I heard myself all day. And that's a pretty wild place to be in when you think about the fact that you're making decisions every single day, where
Hmm.
those, and then, for those of us who are on that more intense or defined spiritual journey, I do want to hear when my angels are like, girl, stop. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not the one. Or that doesn't matter today. Or like they know things. I want to hear my ancestors when they're like, you're on some old stuff. You don't have to do it like that anymore. All of that is valuable to me. And for people who choose to interact with life that way, we can't hear any of that if we can't just notice that you have a green necklace on that happens to be beautiful. I see green, but it matters.
Yeah, it does. And I think that that also is, it's part of your situation awareness, right? To kind of know what's going on in your world and stuff as well. Because again, and I talk about this in my TEDx talk, that our brain has to have a story. So when it has a huge gap, it fills in the blanks, and those blanks they're coming from our inner fears, our inner
And
judgments,
they're
and that's what we
wild.
feel. Yeah,
That
and
can
they
be
feel
really
I
crazy.
Girl, I have listened to some of the stories that even to this day, you guys, I'm just saying, look, I've been doing this work for a while, and to this day, there are times where my brain just starts going down a rabbit hole. Because I had one happen the other day. I was driving, I was going a little fast, and I saw a cop. And I kind of slowed down, and my brain immediately was like, well, if we get pulled over, we're going to say this, and we're going to talk about this, and he's going to say this. And I was like, hold the hell up. Okay, first off, this didn't even happen. He's not even behind me. Why are we making this story? This makes no sense. And I just laugh at myself now. But I remember so many times where I like fixated on that. And I went through this entire conversation of life, even and I know that there are people out there that have done this where you have a situation with someone, the situation is over. But you are
Done
still
it.
going through, and you're like, well, if she would have said this, I would have said that, and I should have told him this. And you like literally create the entire scenario in your head just to continue to be perpetuated on it instead of, why are we thinking about this? It's
Yeah.
done, it's over. I'm not going to say this to this person. And it's over. It is. The brain amazes me, and it makes me giggle at the same time. It's some of the
Yeah.
crazy shit that it comes up with,
It's really wild.
but
Like it will make leaps. And like, I mean, I've had those mornings where like I get out of the shower and I'm so angry because I hyped myself up, replaying what I should have said and what I should have did and how they should have, seen where the good Lord split me, like all of this. And I literally get out of the shower and I'm spitting mad about what?
the
I'm getting angry,
make
putting my
believe.
shoes on, and I know somebody's listening. I know y'all are out there.
Oh, absolutely.
All the people we
100%.
done
Don't tell
told
me you
off while we're
didn't.
getting dressed in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you wonder why you have a bad day. Yeah, because you already set the tone for it.
Right? Like
And
you
again,
started out arguing with absolutely no one.
but yourself,
But
but you
no,
damn
that's the
self.
spirit though, too, because I used to feel guilty about that because I thought it meant I lacked mental discipline. What I
Hmm.
realized though was that that anger is telling me that I felt violated in some way. And when I'm really angry about typically is not as much about what happened. That may not be, it may be out of bounds. I'm usually more
Hmm.
angry at myself with how I handled it or didn't handle it. And I think that's
Ooh.
true for many of us. That's why it stays with us because really we're afraid of the version of ourselves that let harm or disrespect or disregard come our way and didn't do anything about it.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Yep.
So
I
y'all can
love
be
that
like
one. It's
spirituality is weird, but that's spirituality.
hmm
When your being is telling you something through anger, through rumination, and that energy has to go somewhere. So you can keep being mad at yourself and lose confidence in yourself, stop trusting yourself, or you can put a little alchemy on it and you can go journal it out, write. I like to do the cuss out letters where I write all the things that I know, even if I had a chance, I probably wouldn't say, but I just
Yep.
MF it and get it all on paper and then burn it. And then I let the universe deal with the karma. Hey, universe, I'm mad about it. I sent the smoke up to you. Y'all handle it. That's spiritual for me. And that brings me peace so that I can set that aside and
Yeah.
then move towards the things that like actually make me feel good and that I enjoy. But those are like goofy rituals, but it works. Why
It
not?
works.
You're
That's
not
that's the
hurting
bigger thing
anybody. You're
is
not going to catch a
nope.
case.
We need to stay out of that. We're gonna talk about some of the situations I could have got myself in. So Hell, I can't thank you enough for all this. And I love that again that we got a chance today to really speak about these practical tools and these things that people can use in their everyday life. So I hope that everybody was taking notes. I also know, Elle, that you have an amazing freebie
I
for
do.
everyone. Would you mind touching on this for us?
So, as I mentioned a few times, you have 288 opportunities to take 5 minutes a day. And so I created a guide that gives you all these ideas using the natural elements. Just really practical stuff. Some of them you can do at your desk, you can do them with your kids, do them in the car, but just ways to grab 5 minutes to lift yourself up, to transmute this energy, to be your own little magician, to alchemize, or just to, get yourself through the day feeling a little bit better. So that guide, it's really kind of an anti-hustle guide, if you will. And if you
Mm,
can't give yourself permission, look at the guide and be like, Elle and Kat are giving me permission to take my 5. Just like you can just throw
absolutely.
that around. Elle and Kat said I should take 5.
People be
Go
like, who
ahead.
in the hell is that? Don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry about it.
Don't worry
They're
about
above your pay grade. So take your 5, get the
it.
guide.
Take your 5. Oh, I love it. Take your 5, get your guy. Okay. So I'm so excited. Um, so easily amused nowadays. So where can everybody find you and connect with you as well?
So you can find me at bio.site/Elle Sojourner. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. My handle everywhere is Elle Sojourner. So you'll find me, all the links, ceremonial work, spiritual healing, groups, books, divination, Elle Sojourner.
I love it. And of course, we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes, including the amazing freebie. So make it super simple. You guys definitely also need to go back to part 1, take a listen, take all of that in. There's also a freebie on that one as well for you guys. So make sure that you are grabbing and snagging all the things on how we can be more present for ourselves, which ends up rippling out to everybody else. So Elle, thank you so much
Thank
for coming back to the
you.
podcast.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's my privilege. You take care of yourself. Everyone, take good care of yourself so we can love each other more.
Absolutely. Oh, I love you so much. Thank you so much. To everybody else, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. Like I said, please make sure you go back and listen to part 1 and re-listen to part 2 after you've heard part 1, and so that you can really integrate and take in the things that are meant for you. They say that, sometimes we need to hear the same thing 7 times before it really connects with us. So I challenge you, listen to it again, feel the things that maybe point out to you, that catch your attention, so that you can find space and peace and be able to give yourself grace in a world where we don't slow down. So until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable